They celebrated when I failed the entrance exam, said, "Guess we only have one smart kid in the family." That night, I wrote down everything they said. 10 years later, they found my face on Forbes magazine. Headline, Intelligent Man of the Decade. I still remember the way the tiles in the kitchen gleamed under the cheap ceiling light, how the smell of burnt toast clung to the walls, and how their laughter cut sharper than any insult I'd ever read in a schoolyard book. It wasn't the kind of laughter you could mistake for nervous chuckles or teasing between close family. It was pure, undiluted amusement at my expense, the kind of sound that hits your spine like ice water. My mother, leaning against the counter with a mug of coffee in hand, didn't even try to hide the curl of her lip when she said it. "Well, guess we only have one smart kid in the family." It rolled out of her mouth like it had been waiting to leave, sitting on her tongue since the day I was born. My older brother, of course, was the designated genius, the golden boy with 2 early scholarships and a face the neighbors loved. He was standing there too, grinning like he'd just won some invisible competition. Dad offered a scoff from the other room without looking up from his phone. "Don't worry, someone's got a clap from the audience." They all laughed, loud, openly. Nobody even bothered to look in my direction after that. I stood there for a moment, holding the rejection letter in my hand like it was a death certificate. The university's crest was still shimmering in red ink at the top, mocking me. I hadn't just failed the entrance exam. I had failed to meet their expectations, failed to give them another reason to show off in front of friends, failed to be the son who fit the mold. No one asked how I felt. No one asked what I would do next. Dinner was served as usual. Chatter about my brother's upcoming internship at a multinational firm dominated the table. Mom gushed about the suit she bought for him. Dad nodded along like a proud executive reviewing his portfolio. I chewed my food silently, each bite sticking to the roof of my mouth. That was the night I realized I didn't just lose a shot at university. I'd lost whatever sliver of respect I might have had in that household. Later that night, long after the dishes were cleared and the lights had dimmed across the house, I sat on the cold floor of my bedroom, back resting against the bed frame. The moonlight pooled onto the wood like a quiet witness, and I pulled out a cheap spiral notebook from my drawer, the kind I once used for math notes. I opened to a blank page, and I began to write. Every word, every phrase, every insult. I even described their expressions. My mother's smug smile, my father's dismissive snort, my brother's gleeful superiority. That night I made a promise, not to them, to myself. There would be no applause, no support, no cheering section. Just me, my silence, and that notebook. While they plastered my brother's degrees across the living room wall, I worked. In silence, obsessively. Days blurred into nights and weekends became indistinguishable from weekdays. I wasn't studying to catch up. I was dissecting everything. From computer programming languages to psychology, from digital marketing strategies to neural network modeling, I devoured information, not in search of grades. I didn't need another university to approve of me. I needed knowledge that mattered, skills that built power, that made systems, that manipulated markets. I failed, repeatedly. Algorithms didn't always work. My first startup flopped so hard it nearly buried me in debt. But I kept going. When I needed food, I worked part-time at a gas station. When I needed data access, I stayed overnight in the public library. When I needed mentorship, I reverse-engineered the habits of the most successful men in tech. I watched, read, decoded. There were nights I could barely keep my eyes open, my fingers numb from typing lines of code or writing pitches for investors who never replied. There were mornings I woke up on a beanbag in someone else's office, wondering what day it was. But every time I opened that notebook and saw those sentences etched in thick black ink, it lit something again, something cold, relentless, and quietly violent. The turning point came not from a miracle, but from a rejected pitch that went viral by accident. An investor had mocked my prototype on a private forum. I leaked the comment thread and released the beta software anyway. The internet chewed on it for a weekend, and suddenly the same app that had been laughed out of every room was trending in 40 countries. 1 week later, I had 35 offers on the table. I didn't take the highest bid. I took the one that gave me full creative control. I wanted no leash, no board to answer to, and definitely no family member taking credit. 10 years from the day I failed that entrance exam, I stood on a stage in New York, wearing a tailored suit I paid for in cash. My face was on the cover of Forbes. The headline, intelligent man of the decade. There was a pause in the room when I first walked out. A silence, not like the one I'd grown up in, but a silence of attention, of respect earned, not gifted. My name carried weight now, not because of a degree, not because of applause, but because I built something they couldn't ignore. Back home, I heard through an old neighbor that my mother framed the magazine cover. My father forwarded the article to his business friends. My brother, now middle management in a company I quietly bought through a holding group, liked the post on LinkedIn. I never replied. The notebook still sits in my drawer, the pages worn at the edges, the ink faded slightly. I don't look at it every day now. I don't need to. But I'll never throw it away. Because it wasn't about proving them wrong. It was always about proving me right. The first time I walked through the front door again, nothing had changed in the house. Same worn-out couch, same beige curtains, same faint trace of lemon-scented cleaner that tried to hide the stale air of forgotten dreams. The family photo above the fireplace still had me in it. Years younger, forced smile, shoulders slightly hunched like I knew I didn't belong even back then. But now, something had changed. I didn't come back for dinner or some soft reconciliation. I returned to collect what was mine, my place, my voice, my identity. And this time, they would have no choice but to hear it. The call came 3 weeks before. My father, voice stiff like a man tasting pride he wasn't ready to admit, said they were planning a family dinner. "Your brother's getting promoted," he added, as if that was still the headline. I told him I was free that weekend. He said, "Good," and hung up. No small talk, no catching up. It was the first time he'd called in years. They didn't know what I'd become, not really. They saw the article. They'd read the headlines, but they didn't understand the weight behind it. Success, in their eyes, had always worn a tie and spoken degrees and resumes. What I built wasn't on paper. It was in code, decisions, networks. I didn't owe anyone a PowerPoint presentation. I didn't show up in a sports car or with bodyguards. I arrived alone, black slacks, collared shirt, watch they wouldn't recognize even if I told them the price. I didn't wear the face of someone seeking approval. I wore the one forged through 10 years of being underestimated. My mother answered the door. Her eyes paused on me, as if calculating the right expression to wear. "You look sharp," she said. "I'm not here for compliments." She stepped aside, letting me in without another word. Inside, the table was already set. My brother sat at the end, sleeves rolled up, gold watch peeking from his wrist like it was trying too hard. His wife sat next to him, all smiles and manicured approval. Dad leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, eyes scanning me like I was still wearing hand-me-downs and failure. No one offered a seat. I pulled one out myself and sat down across from my brother. They started eating before I said a word. Roast chicken, green beans, mashed potatoes. Classic meal, dressed up like it meant something. The talk began the same way it always did. His job, his team, his future. My mother beamed every time he said client or regional lead. My father grunted his approval between bites. I waited. They didn't ask what I'd been doing. Not really. They brought up the magazine like it was a footnote. "That article," Dad finally said, carving into his plate. "Nice write-up. Didn't know you were still into that tech stuff." That tech stuff. My brother leaned in. "So, what exactly do you do now? Build apps? Or is it one of those crypto things?" I didn't smile. "I run a portfolio of companies under my holding firm. AI infrastructure, SaaS, private data platforms, market automation tools. I'm also launching an acquisition arm to absorb distressed assets in media and e-commerce." His fork paused midair. "Oh." No congratulations. No deeper questions. Just silence. I could see it, the confusion, the slow realization that I wasn't just lucky or a fluke. I had outgrown everything they ever imagined for me. Every assumption they'd held onto was burning away. My mother cleared her throat. "That sounds impressive." She turned to my brother. "You remember when you built that website in high school? Maybe you two could work together." He laughed awkwardly. "Yeah, but his world's probably way past mine." I didn't correct him. I didn't explain that one of the subsidiaries I owned had bought the firm that offered his last raise. I didn't tell them that his regional office now answered to one of my boards. I came here to watch, not to fix anything. They asked about my living arrangements, and I told them I didn't stay in one place long enough for it to matter. My father made a comment about how stability was important. I reminded him that his mortgage had been 2 months late when I was 16. He stopped talking after that. The meal ended without ceremony. My brother and his wife left first, citing early meetings. My mother started clearing plates. Dad disappeared into the living room like he always did, leaving behind a mess he never acknowledged. I stood, walked to my old room. They hadn't changed it. Same peeling posters, same desk with the broken drawer, same faint mark on the wall from the night I threw a chair after an argument no one remembers now. I opened the drawer and pulled out the notebook. They hadn't touched it, still buried under old papers and dust. I flipped through the pages. There they were, lines scratched in fury and purpose. Every quote, every eye roll, every passive comment they never knew I heard. I walked back to the kitchen, notebook in hand. My mother looked at it, confused. "You kept that old thing?" I opened to the first page and read aloud. "Guess we only have one smart kid in the family. June 14th, 2015. She froze. I turned the page. "Don't worry. Someone's got a clap from the audience. Same day. You laughed after he said it." Her mouth opened, then shut. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. This isn't bitterness. It's a ledger. It's why I didn't need your help. It's why I made it alone. She reached for the notebook. I stepped back. "No, you don't get to touch this. You gave me nothing but reasons to fill it." My father, now standing in the doorway, didn't speak. He looked at the cover like it was a court summons. "I didn't come here to forgive. I came to remind you. Not every story you bury stays dead. Some crawl out and build empires." I walked out of that house without looking back. No hugs, no promises to visit again. The door shut behind me and it felt final. I returned to my car. The driver waited, engine humming. I sat in silence, notebook beside me. This wasn't revenge. It wasn't closure either. This was documentation. The next step wasn't going to be about family. It was going to be about legacy. 3 weeks after that dinner, I made a decision. Not out of anger, not to prove anything. I had already done that. This was for me, a full stop. I needed to close the loop and be done with it, not because they deserved it, but because I didn't want to carry the weight of their ignorance any longer. The notebook had served its purpose. It gave me direction when I had none. But I wasn't that 19-year-old anymore, staring at rejection letters with shaky hands and hollow lungs. I was finished looking back. I booked the hall under a neutral name. No company branding, no sponsors. Just invitations sent out to 100 guests. Some were key figures in tech, others from the investment world. A few had once ignored my emails. Now they replied within minutes. One seat at the front table was marked family. I wasn't sure they'd come, but they did. They arrived in a rented black SUV, stepped into the lobby with stiff backs and unsure eyes. My mother wore a dress she hadn't pulled out since my brother's wedding. My father had trimmed his beard for the first time in months. My brother came alone. I stood at the far end of the room talking to a few venture partners who'd backed my second company. I saw them before they saw me. I didn't walk over. I let them take in the room. The massive screens displaying my newest project, the media team interviewing guests, the quiet but unmistakable realization that every inch of this space had my fingerprints on it. When they finally reached me, I nodded once. No embrace, no small talk. "You invited us," my mother said. "I needed you to see something." She glanced at the screens. "It's impressive." "It's ownership," I replied. The room dimmed. A spotlight focused on the center stage. My voice echoed from the speakers as I stepped up to the podium. 10 years ago, I was told I didn't belong, that I wouldn't recover, that there was only room for one person to succeed. What they didn't understand was that failure wasn't the end of me. It was the beginning. I didn't mention names. I didn't have to. I stand here not because someone opened a door, but because I built the damn building. Applause. Real. Loud. Sustained. Not for a degree, not for approval, but for impact. After the event, I met them in the quiet lobby outside the main room. My father looked me in the eye, without judgment or ego. "We were wrong," he said. I nodded. "Yes." My mother touched the edge of the notebook I still held, wrapped now in leather, edges worn but strong. "Will you ever forgive us?" "I don't need to," I said. "You were a chapter, not the whole book." I handed her the notebook. She looked confused. "It's yours now. Do whatever you want with it. Burn it, bury it, display it. It doesn't matter. I don't need it anymore." They left without saying much else. My brother stayed behind. He looked unsure of what to say, then finally offered a hand. I shook it. "No resentment," I said. "Just distance." He nodded. "Fair." I walked back into the event as the lights shifted for the closing speeches. I stood near the edge, unnoticed in the crowd, watching the screens rotate through photos of my teams, our achievements, the logos of companies that now ran industries. I had turned silence into structure. I had built resilience from their neglect. And now, there was nothing left to win from them. No approval left to chase. The notebook stayed behind. The chapter was finished. Not with rage, not with revenge, but with closure. I never returned to that house again, and I never needed to.